Welcome, FCS professionals, supporters, and friends. My name is Karen Athanas, and I'm your host for this episode of Think FCS. Think FCS is the channel where we talk about all things family and consumer sciences, with updates from experts, recent news, research from the field, and more. Check in each month to learn something new, and please remember to click the like and share buttons. Think FCS is brought to you by the American Association for Family and Consumer Sciences, the association dedicated to supporting individuals, families, and communities through the education and support of FCS professionals. So, what is FCS? Family and Consumer Sciences is the people-centered science. We're focused on the study of individuals, families, and communities with the aim of assisting them to live healthy and successful lives through the provision of education, research, and technology. FCS has had a range of names over the years, including family studies, human sciences, human ecology, health and human sciences, home economics, and more. You can learn more about these different terms and how they are interwoven into the family and consumer sciences body of knowledge on the AAFCS.org website. Click the About tab and then select About FCS to find a range of resources and publications for your use. This episode, I will be discussing the recent AAFCS industry research study into the family and consumer sciences and sharing with you some key findings from the study. Before we get started, a few updates from the AAFCS. Applications for many of our awards and grants are now open, and we are seeking applications from FCS professionals throughout their careers. This is a great opportunity to tell the AAFCS about your projects and successes, or to acknowledge an FCS professional that has supported you in this year. So please check those out and submit your nominations as soon as you can. We've also extended the due date for submitting a proposal to the AAFCS for the 2026 annual conference. Take advantage of this great opportunity to share your research, projects, a recent case study, or to discuss a critical emerging issue. As I like to stress all the time, family consumer sciences work directly with students and with communities throughout the United States. If you're looking to get visibility to an emerging issue, informing them on that issue is such a critical first step because they will take that back to the communities they work with and make sure they're aware of those issues as well. And the WFCS certainly concentrates a lot on product safety and informing consumers about how they can live happier, healthier lives. So we'd love for you to join us at that annual conference. Registration for the annual conference opens next week, and we have an exciting new offering. The AAFCS has coordinated a 2-day artificial intelligence workshop to be held before the conference on June 17th and 18th. So you can come to the AI workshop and then join us for the full conference. They don't overlap, so you'll be able to do both. And we've got sessions both days to help you along your artificial intelligence journey. The workshop will include speakers from industry, education, and more. And those interested in attending do not need to be AI experts or know a lot about artificial intelligence, but we are recommending that attendees attend the AAFCS 5-part virtual AI series to help them become acquainted with AI prior to the workshop. It is available through our Think FCS virtual professional development system. So if you go to the website and you click that Think button, it'll take you straight to the Think FCS platform. Reach out to the AAFCS with any questions. We look forward to seeing you next year in Louisville, Kentucky at the annual conference. And now let's dive into the study. All right, the impact of FCS, AAFCS, the FCS Industry Research Study. Let me tell you a little bit background of why we did the study. We started the study back in fall of 2024. The AAFCS did work with an independent research firm to conduct the study, and so they followed normal research practices. It did include 2 parts. It included a survey of FCS professionals throughout their careers, and we worked with our Family and Consumer Sciences organization partners to send that survey out to as many professionals working as we could to get their feedback. And so you can see here that we got responses from 1,200 individuals, and they were required to answer certain questions to qualify for the survey. That way we knew that we were really surveying individuals that we would identify as a family consumer sciences professional. So it included things like, did they get a degree in family consumer sciences? Did they take family consumer sciences in high school, or were they working in a occupation that has that title of family consumer sciences administrator or extension agent, that kind of thing. The second part of the survey included a review of data available through government websites, and we've listed a few here on the slide. So the census data was really important. Department of Labor, their Bureau of Standards, shows which occupations individuals end up working in. And then that National Center of Education Statistics talks about what the schools are reporting in regards to students that are taking certain classes or certain degree programs. And so all of that is summarized in the study. The purpose of the research is the family consumer sciences, despite its scale, and it's quite large, FCS is spread across 8 industry codes, the NAICS, just Google it, codes, which obscures its contributions. Recognition as an industry sector would be much more accurate if we were under one code. But unfortunately, family consumer sciences is an industry sector, not a separate single industry. So it encompasses a lot of other industries, and the study talks about that. But it does make it really difficult for us to report on how many individuals work in our industry sector, what their salary ranges are, what professions they get into, and just really the large scope of it. And so the intent of this study was to start pulling that together so that we could map that ecosystem of family and consumer sciences. We asked several questions as part of this, and these are kind of the big takeaways. So, we aren't identified as a distinct sector, like I mentioned. And also many of our FCS students who take family consumer sciences in high school, and it's called the completer program. So if students take 2 or more classes or even 3 or 4 classes, they're considered a completer in that career and technical education area. Well, many of those students will then go on to work in industry. So they might move into food services, they might go into textile science or something like that, or hospitality, straight from high school. And right now, the government tracking, the research and the data that's out there does not include students who go from high school straight into employment. And so when you look at the numbers I'm going to quote, those do not include those individuals. And so the AAFCS and others, we are thinking through how can we better track and report on the number of family consumer science professionals that are graduating from high school and moving directly into the career field. And part of that is one of our new membership options that we are launching. And you can take advantage of it now if you are a high school student that receives a AAFCS pre-professional credential, meaning you take that assessment test and then you receive your certification. You can receive a free year of membership with the AAFCS if you then go straight into the workforce. So it's a great opportunity for students to stay connected to our industry and connected to the individuals in our industry and really help them grow within their careers and advance within their careers while still pursuing employment. All right. And then the other reason that we did this study is there is this misconception that, one, there aren't post-secondary programs for family and consumer sciences. Now, this is from a publication from back in 2000, but it's an important date because back in 2000 is when family and consumer sciences was removed from the career clusters framework. And it didn't have a different name back then, but it is the list of groupings of careers that is used by states when developing their middle school and high school programming in career and technical education. And back in 2000, around when this publication went out, family consumer sciences was part of that. It was a well-recognized vocation, but there was a misconception that family consumer sciences was educating individuals that would not move into the workforce, that were going to be unpaid labor, or they were going to take care of households, or in some way not be salary generating. And there was also this idea that there weren't post-secondary educational tracks for the family and consumer sciences. Now, we know today that that was incorrect. We have had college and university programs since the 1900s. And so we're kind of curious where that background came from. But just obviously, we have some misconceptions that the industry needs to address so that we can better educate the public. And secondly, this is from 2022. a report published by the Congressional Research Service, so a government group, and they're still identifying as non-salary generating or non-revenue generating. So really still seeing us as non-occupational. And if you think of that from the middle school, high school kind of career pathway, this focus on career and technical education, many states still provide family consumer sciences as part of their career and technical education programming. And we teach culinary arts, we teach food and nutrition, we teach early childhood education. We're a major pathway for educators. So it's kind of interesting that we're still being referenced as non-occupational as an industry. So we hope that this study that I'm now going to walk you through some of the results of will help us show regulators and others that no, family consumer sciences is a very successful career pathway for students. So I'll just leave it here for a second so that you can all use the QR code. And in case the QR code isn't working, I've also included the URL so that you can go to our website. We have published that study. It's over 130 pages. If you are a member, you can log into our Think FCS platform and review the entire study. And we really do hope that you use it in your research, that you reference it in your publications. If media are listening along, we hope that you use it in your stories. And if you do need access to a specific quote or piece of information, you can certainly reach out to the AAFCS. For those that want to use it, or maybe you're not a member, we also have made available the introduction and the executive summary. All you have to do is fill out a quick form and we will email you that PDF document for your use. And you're going to get the bulk of the high notes from the study in that executive summary. So you haven't really missed out on anything. We encourage you to make use of that executive summary and then also to share it with all of your contacts. All right, and then also on the AAFCS website at that URL, you're going to find a wide range of downloadable material to help you promote the data from the study. So as you can see here, we've organized it in groupings so that it's an easy printable flyer that you can hand out. There's also some social media images and some copy that you can post to help you promote the value of family consumer sciences. We've got some great data here that I'm going to dig into in the presentation, but if I'm going to point out anything, if you look at that top 5, see it in red, top 5 industries employing FCS professionals: education, healthcare and social assistance, professional scientific and technical services, retail trade, and public administration. And if I can focus on the professional for a second, family consumer sciences is a research-based industry. So all of the instruction, the education, the materials that our professionals develop, it is based on published research. And the AAFCS is one of those publishers. We have 2 journals, the Journal of Family Consumer Sciences and the Family Consumer Sciences Research Journal. And it really dives into critical issues. It talks about how can we address nutritional deficits by different programming. It looks at case studies. It explores the dynamics of culture and family interactions. So the family consumer sciences is heavily based in research, and we also are very involved in research and development of products and services. And so that's what you find in that professional, scientific, and technical services area. And then my other note is in healthcare and social assistance. Family consumer sciences, we are very focused in the human sciences side of health and human sciences. And so if you're looking for an FCS professional, we're going to be those ones that are helping with home health care, with aging in place, with nutrition for people that have special diets. So look for us in those types of positions. All right, so 2 key talking points that I would love for you to take away from the study and use in your discussions with policymakers or other individuals. FCS is the people-centered science. Our science is all about how to make people's lives better. And we're also research-based, and it fuels a $753 billion industry sector covering 351 occupations and 215 industries. And so that is why it's so hard to wrap our hands around our huge industry sector, because we are everywhere. I mean, when you think about understanding people and what drives them and their needs, every single industry needs our assistance. And then a separate one, FCS educators deliver $52.8 billion in value annually through schools, colleges, and workforce training programs. We are preparing over 2.5 million students each year with the employability skills that employers need. So employers out there, if you're listening, if you want to hire a highly skilled, ready to work individual, look for the ones that have taken family and consumer sciences in high school or have graduated with a family and consumer sciences degree. And there are credentials available to high school students. There's actually a wide range of them through the AAFCS. Many states recognize our credentialing programs. So if you're looking to, focus on the students graduating from high school that are going to have the highest likelihood of success in employment, look for the ones that have obtained one of those AAFCS credentials. All right, so if we focus first on secondaries, that will be your middle high school students. So 2.5 per million students each year take at least one family and consumer sciences course in career and technical education. And you can see here there's different subcategories they fall in. What this highlights is any student that takes 2 or more courses is considered a concentrator, and over 1 million students do that. So if you look at 2.5 take them every year, at least 1 million are actually taking their second class. That's a really high percentage. And then moving on to post-secondary, they fall in love with family consumer sciences. They want to take it in college. And 47,000 graduate each year with a family consumer sciences degree. Now, some of them graduate with more than one degree, which is surprising for me as a one degree person. It's actually over, I think, 55,000 get 55,000 degrees conferred each year, but it's 47,000 people. Really, really exciting. And you can see the bulk of them are falling in human development family studies, and that's where you find our educators. So many of them are moving straight into education to teach at, say, the elementary, middle, high school, and post-secondary level. And then others are moving into apparel and textiles. And just a note for our fashion design people out there, that is our fastest growing area. So more students each year graduate from apparel and textiles. If you're thinking about cutting that college program, please do not, because you're going to be cutting your foot off. There's tons of students who want to take apparel and textiles. And then you've got food and nutrition, and many of them end up in dietetics. FCS General also is a education area, but they also might move into extension education or one of those public service areas. And then when you look at family and consumer economics, that is really your personal and family finance professionals. So they're out there teaching students how to balance their budget, how to understand interest rates, and to pursue loans and that sort of thing. All right, so 37%. You remember how I was talking about 2.5 million and then the 1 million? 37% of FCS participants become concentrators, meaning they took the first class, they fell in love with it, and they came back for more. And they're embedded across all the CTA career clusters. So remember how I was saying how family consumer sciences is not included as its own separate career cluster. It should. I will make that argument. It absolutely should. I think that we've proven this study that it is a really valuable career pathway. But right now, the classes can be found amongst the other career clusters. So an example, you might find culinary over with agriculture or with education. Education is its own career cluster, even though really family consumer sciences covers all of that career cluster. Human services. So this gives you kind of the breakout in how the study looked at the data and added it together. And then strangely, well, I guess not strange, but we focus on textile science and design, but design from a functionality perspective. And at the high school level, students are really just learning how to construct clothing, and that typically is captured under arts and design. But if you think about it from the family consumer sciences perspective, we're not really looking at the art part of it, but we're looking at the construction and the scientific part of it. And then I love this, of all career and technical education concentrators across the board, not just family consumer sciences, all of them, 68% of students pursue a post-secondary degree, meaning if they take it in high school, they figure out that that is their career pathway, and then they pursue higher level education so that they can be a successful adult in that career pathway. And it just shows you how successful career and technical education is as a whole. So, parents out there, if you're thinking about, hey, should my student pursue a career pathway or pursue these career and technical education courses? The answer is yes, because it is their first chance to really try out one of these future careers and see if they're going to like it. And a special add-on for family consumer sciences is we do that career exploration class that helps students understand that if they're going to like the course, understand what's involved in being in that occupation, and think through, where they want their career to go. And then you can see that 27% of that 68% actually pursue the same topic as they did when they were in high school. So a great connector. Now let's look at the workforce. Now, I mentioned earlier, we cannot track students that go from high school into career. So this is specifically the individuals that get some sort of degree in college or university, and it doesn't include community colleges. And then they go on to work in the workforce. So right now, over 500,000 working adults has an FCS degree. And that's, and there's been growth from 2022 to 2023. So I want to stress that family consumer sciences is a growing industry sector, that more and more individuals are moving into it and finding successful careers. But when we look at that 500,000, it's actually much larger, but we aren't able to track those students that went straight into their careers. So we're 0.8% of the workforce, and we're representing 10%, over 10% of key industries. And we're going to talk about the key industries in a second. But look at the breakdown. Most of our professionals get a bachelor's degree and move into their careers. Then you've got the small percentage that pursue their master's degree, and then additional degrees after that. And I will note a lot of teacher promotion programs require that they pursue a master's degree, so that's obviously connected to this. All right, so let's talk about the professionals. They work in 351 occupations. Isn't that crazy? 351 occupations. Huge. Very hard to track. We're starting to nail that down. Luckily, our research team provided us with that list of 351. And it's because we're such a science-based discipline and we work in so many content areas that where you can go with your career is limitless for students. And that's why we highly recommend students consider taking a family consumer sciences class and see if it's a good fit for them. So you can see here the major NAICS codes. These are the industry codes that the government uses to track different industries. So one of them is educational services. It employs 28% of all family consumer sciences professionals. And then accommodation and food services employs 9%. I personally think that's where a lot of our hidden employees are found. They start in food services and they work their way up into maybe food administration, management, and so forth. Public administration, think of all of those government employees that administer programs. That's 8% of all family consumer sciences professionals. And then social assistants. We are the people-centered science. We care about people. And so you can find a lot of family and consumer sciences in positions where they are helping people with unemployment, with job assistance, with nutrition or access to food, and so forth. So looking at education, and we'll do another podcast where we look at some of the other industry areas, but just focusing on education, you can see how heavily we weight in the education space. And you might be wondering, okay, in the graph, I see two different comparative graphs. The right-hand graph in blue, the GSP survey, that is the survey of professionals that responded to our outreach. And so you can see of the over 1,200 people that responded to the outreach, a huge portion of them work in education. And it's an interesting fact that most individuals who see themselves as FCS professionals are working in education, where they really maintain the moniker in their titles. So that might say FCS teacher, might say FCS extension agent. In other professions, they don't maintain that title. And so they lose that visibility of themselves as working in a family and consumer sciences industry. And then the left-hand side shows the census data. So this is what the government sees when it looks at our industry sector. And you can see the dichotomy of the difference. So for those listening along, the government thinks 24% work in education, and our survey with 80% worked in education, so a little bit different of a viewpoint. But you see the same subsectors showing up in both studies. So in elementary and middle school teachers, 8.4% are family and consumer sciences. Preschool and kindergarten, 5%. Teacher assistants, 2%. Secondary school teachers, 1.9%. Post-secondary teachers, 1.6%. So we're throughout the educational pathway and really making up a large percentage of education. Now, this comes up a lot. How much do family consumer sciences get paid as a salary? Educators make anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000. Post-secondary educators, which is the highest paid amongst the educators, is $83,000, which is pretty great. And then the non-educators professions are between $60,000 and $100,000. Now, we do have some occupations that are lower salary, don't we all? There are plenty of occupations that have a similar deficit, but that's because you're working low and you're building up your career. So you're going to make your way up to that higher salary, but these are the averages, which are pretty high. And for those thinking about getting a master's degree, your salary will go up by 36% on average. So, that shows you that it'll be worth the investment to pursue that master's degree. All right, so let's look at some of the other industry areas where you can find a lot of family consumer sciences. And many of these reference our revenue generation. So when you're looking at these, we really wanted to understand how much our employees are contributing to revenue generation for the companies they work for. So that's what this is reporting. It's looking at the percentage of family consumer science professionals working for that industry, how much each individual in that industry generates in regards to revenue, and then does the math to show us what percentage family consumer sciences contribute. So for daycare services, the industry in which FCS professionals contribute the most total industry revenue, it's 13.4% or $7.6 billion. So when you're talking about making changes to child daycare centers, developing child care programming, you really should be reaching out to Family Consumer Sciences. We are a huge contributor to revenue generation, which means that we are the bulk of the salaried employees in that area. So we could help advise how to improve, how to benefit children more, how to be more successful in that industry. Next, individual and family services hold the second largest percentage at 10.3%, and FCS professionals generate 10% of total revenue among businesses in outpatient care center industry. So for those two, that's 10% in each one. But look at the big difference. So 10% of outpatient care centers, but we generate $21 billion in that industry, whereby individual and family services is not as revenue generating, so our 10% generates 6%, but still a huge contributor to both of those industries. And the individual and family services are going to be like social services, counseling services, in-home care, that kind of thing. And then the outpatient care, we don't do medical support, but we do post support. So we would come into the home and help you rearrange and make things easier for you as you recover. Now let's look into the general medical, surgical hospitals and so forth. Remember, we work a lot in administration. We work a lot in support services. So that's where you're finding us in these hospitals. And FCS professionals generate the largest total revenue, $83 billion within the general medical, surgical hospitals and specialty hospitals industry. That represents 6.3% of the total revenue. So all of that support that you get within the hospital system being provided by family and consumer sciences professionals. This is why we really stress that you need to continue to support family and consumer sciences in the educational pathway in colleges and universities, because these jobs will not get filled without family and consumer sciences graduates coming out of colleges and universities every year. Think of all of the employment gaps that we have in other industries. We do not want that in the hospital system. So over 80% of GSP survey respondents, so those are those FCS professionals, the 1,200 plus that responded to our survey, they reported that their current career is directly related to their FCS education and background, and they value applying their FCS knowledge and expertise to their jobs. So even when their jobs are tangentially related to FCS, they are still using their knowledge of consumers, of the needs of people and what drives them and how to understand them in their day-to-day jobs. And then 38% of educators and 42% of non-educators report that their biggest challenges are these 6 bullet points here. So 14% said limited higher education programs. Colleges and universities, you need to support the family and consumer sciences. There are people that want to pursue degrees and they can't because you aren't offering the degreed programs. If you make it available, they will enroll. So work with the AAFCS. We do have a Assembly of Higher Education. We can help you with your programming, but it is vital that you continue to offer these family and consumer sciences courses. Secondly, poor promotion of the family and consumer sciences. That is why we're here today. We need to bring more visibility to how important this industry is, how important these individuals working in these occupations are. Compensation from other fields or competition from other fields. So there are some fields that are similar. So if you think about textile design, of course, there's these wonderful runway shows. There's all these beautiful clothes being developed. Family consumer sciences really focuses on functional clothing design. Think about all of those jobs where you need to wear a uniform, where you need special safety equipment, that you need a design that's going to be lightweight or that opens in a certain way. That is where you find family consumer science professionals. But people see us as competing with the fashion and design industry. So we need to find an equal ground where both can exist. The next, budget cuts. We have seen that across the board. We've seen that budget cuts for education, budget cuts for special programs. If you think about community programs that are funded by grant funding, family and consumer sciences professionals are starting nonprofits. They're working in these community programs, and they can't offer the programming without that funding. Lack of administrative support. We've heard from numerous people that their colleges and universities are starting to cut back on funding, or maybe state administrators are starting to take money away from family consumer sciences at the high school level and moving it to other programs. The biggest hardship for family consumer sciences is in that career and technical education space because we are not listed as our own career cluster. The states divvy up funding based on career cluster. So the states don't have to follow that national standard, but many do. And because of that, we are excluded from our own funding channels, which means that our FCS professionals have to seek sponsorships from businesses in their communities. And we're talking about funding for like building kitchens and cookware and knife sets and textiles and patterns. And all of those things are increasing in cost due to inflation, and they do not have the money to buy these materials for their students. And so ensuring that they are their own career cluster and that they have their own funding is so essential. And then finally, program closures. And I think that's covered in other areas, but universities, colleges and universities, please do not close those programs. And I noted earlier that textile design is a growing area. You do not want to cut those programs. So where, I see a typo. Lovely. Anybody who's watching the video, you'll see it. Where is WFCS going? What are we going to do next? So outreach to industry. We are reaching out to manufacturers and retailers. We're informing them about family consumer sciences. We're encouraging them to hire professionals with FCS credentials, and to help us in developing our credentials and help us in developing education to employment pathways and really building out that FCS career pathway. We're also working with our FCS community through our Alliance for Family Consumer Sciences, but also directly with our professionals to raise the visibility of family consumer sciences and the great contributions that we give to our communities. And finally, talking to legislators. How can we solve some of these problems? And how can family consumer sciences experts help them think through their policy challenges? Remember, family consumer sciences experts understand people, they understand communities, and they are in there in the trenches working with communities so they can help legislators think through how can they achieve their policy priorities within those communities. We're also distributing our one-pagers and infographics, so I hope that you all will take a second to visit the website and download those items and share them with your communities. We're going to be developing more over the next year and sharing that through our website. We also are going to be developing some state level data. So we have purchased access to that same government data, but on a state by state level, so that we can use that to develop state specific flyers. And legislators, if you're listening, if you'd like to get that information, reach out to the AAFCS and we will work with you to get that. And finally, developing more information. We're going to fund research into family consumer sciences. So I told you earlier, the grants are open. Please submit grants to do research into family consumer sciences. We're going to develop new web pages and articles, and of course, additional webinars and podcasts just like this one. So a big project we would love to focus on, and I want to bring visibility to this because I would love everyone to work on this one. The Bureau of Labor Statistics field for family consumer sciences, if you look at it, they really only focus on education, and yet they note that 30% of family consumer sciences works in the other category. Well, that 30% is those 351 occupations, and we really need the Bureau of Labor Statistics to update their tracking system to include those 351 occupations. So we hope to work with them to build that out, to correct that reference so that we can be more specific in that reporting. How can you help? Well, I just mentioned, please, please, please think of ways that you can help us work with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Also, please refer to Family and Consumer Sciences, FCS, as an industry sector. When people ask you, yes, we are an industry, we are salary generating, revenue generating, and successful career pathways for students. So please reference that when talking to people. Also, please tell them to read the study because it proves all of our points. That's why we've made it available. We want people to make use of it. Your advocacy for family consumer sciences to be included in the NAICS as its own industry code. Remember, I promised you I'd tell you what NAICS means. It means North American Industry Classification System, and that is the list of codes that the government uses to track industries. Family consumer sciences should be in there. Please help us advocate for us to be included. Please use this data in your articles, in your presentations. And also, we are always seeking stories from family consumer sciences about your impact in communities. We want to hear your personal case studies. What project have you done with students? What new programs did you start with communities? And how successful was it? So that we can share that with our contacts. Now, I will end this on a very positive note, the outlook for family and consumer sciences. The U.S. Career Institute projects employment growth through 2032 in health science and human sciences. So I have a couple slides with some examples. First, individual and family services is the fourth fastest growing industry overall, with 31.4% growth projected from until 2032. So those working in individual and family services, you go. And anybody thinking or about their career pathway, think about a career in individual and family services because it is going to be experiencing some huge growth in the next couple of years. And mostly because of elder care. Think about our aging population. They are going to need support and help. So we need individuals that are going to pursue that career pathway. Second, counseling and mental health is expected to grow by 10 to 13%. Again, huge. Culinary arts, this is a huge area for family consumer sciences. I wish I knew how many high school students are moving directly into culinary arts because I think it's a gigantic percentage and it will only grow throughout the next couple of years. And you can see below, food science and human nutrition is also expected to grow 6%. Education is expected to grow 6% among post-secondary educators. I know there's some concerns about funding in universities right now, but we do hope that people continue to pursue post-secondary education and degrees because as we showed, it does increase your salaries, it does increase your employment potential, and it is a great way to expand your knowledge. Textile sciences, 26% growth in the industrial hemp area. And remember, we're functional fabric people, so hemp is perfect for us. Really, those in textile science, please consider pursuing a degree and pursuing a career in textile science, especially in the hemp area. And I mentioned gerontology earlier. It is expected to grow 5% by 2032. I honestly think it'll grow higher than that, but we will all find out in 2032. And then personal and family finance, which I mentioned earlier, which is how professionals help consumers understand their budget, understand housing, understand loans. So it's not for businesses, it's not economics, it is not business math. This is personal math. This is how do I manage my home? This is how do I save up in case I need to replace my roof or my car breaks down? That's the kind of math we're talking about. All right. And then last one, human services and community well-being, individual, family, and social services expected to grow anywhere from 4 to 10%. So think about all of those individuals right now that might be on deferment, that might be veterans, etc. They need our assistance. And so we really are expecting that area to grow in the next couple of years. And then hospitality and event management. We all have weddings, we all have parties, we all want to go on vacation. We are expecting that to continue to grow over the next couple of years. Strangely or interestingly enough, hotels are seeing an employment gap right now. They are looking to hire more individuals. So our family and consumer sciences professionals, if you're in high school, you're thinking about a career pathway, here's a couple areas where there's employment gaps. Education for sure. Please consider pursuing education. We need more family and consumer sciences educators. Second, hospitality and tourism. Hotels have mentioned, restaurants have mentioned that employment is down. They need employees. So really consider this as a career pathway. And finally, milling and baking are expecting to lose, I think, 50,000 employees in the next few years. There are jobs for you in milling and baking. So think about nutritional science, fiber sciences, health sciences, food sciences. That whole area is for you. And we've got jobs available in the next couple of years. All right. So let me escape out of here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for that presentation. I hope that you found it really interesting and that you will visit the website to learn more about the industry study and share it with everybody that you know. And that is the conclusion of our Think FCS this month, providing community, advocacy, resources, continuing education, and more. The AAFCS is your source for all things family and consumer sciences. Whether you're just headed to university, starting your new job, going through a job transition, or preparing for retirement, the AAFCS is there for you each step of the way. Join today and join me each month for updates, tips, and news. Thank you for joining me and for another episode of Think FCS. Each month we bring to you all of the updates, all of the information on family consumer sciences. Don't forget to click that like and share button and join us each month for a new episode. Are you thinking about pursuing a career in FCS? I hope after that presentation you are. Reach out to the American Association for Family and Consumer Sciences and find your people today.